Hey there, Paul David Thompson coming at you. I'm a full-time real estate investor. I no longer depend on a day job, and I'm going to show you how to use other people's money so that you can do the same thing. Hey there, investors. I know what it's like. You have a day job. You want to build income, passive income, so that you can quit your day job and live the life of your own design, your own making, but you got to figure out how to do it first. I was in the same spot. You have to learn how to use other people's money because you don't have enough right now to go buy $3 million worth of real estate. I'm going to show you right now a couple of choices on how to use financing in order to acquire properties. So I'm going to characterize other people's money in two different ways. So first off, we're going to talk about institutional debt or financing. Institutional. And over here we'll call it creative. So on the institutional side, this is what most people think about when they first think of money or think about borrowing money, and that is going to traditional banks. So this is the traditional banks. And then you also have some choices like you can go to commercial loans. So traditional banks are what you would consider by going to Wells Fargo or Bank of America or those type of big lenders, and what they're doing is they're offering you a 30-year fixed product. It's a 30-year, typically 30-year financing fixed rate, and the interest rate there is pretty low. It's one of the most competitive interest rates that you can find out in the market, but you are limited on how many you can get in practice. They look at your income, they look at your credit score, and it's quite a process to go through their kind of engine to come out the other side with a loan. It's doable, it's manageable, but you have to be bankable. If you're self-employed, it can be tough. Commercial loans, kind of a similar situation, but what's different about commercial loans is that they look more on the collateral than they do necessarily just your credit score. They definitely look at your credit score, but they also look at the income that's going to be produced by the property that you're going to buy, what you're going to do with it. They care about that as much. And your personal relationship with that local loan officer in your regional or local bank can be pretty impactful. If you create a good relationship, they can kind of jump through some of the hoops a little bit faster once you get established. But the key is getting established. And one of the really, really big important details about commercial loans that most people won't talk about is they are what they are called demand loans. Demand loans. Meaning, in the contract, and almost all commercial loans, the bank has the ability to accelerate the clause or accelerate the loan on you like that. They don't have to give you any viable reason. It's in their clause that they can accelerate that loan whenever it suits the bank's needs. In most cases, that doesn't make sense for the bank to do so. But if a 2008 or 9 type situation were to happen again, then these type of loans would make you exposed. If they have a credit crunch, they can call those loans back in. Because see, these loans are held by the bank typically. They're not sold off to a third party on the secondary market. This is loans that they hold themselves, and they're keeping a pretty tight rein on their own portfolio. And if they feel like they're in a credit crunch, they're going to do what they have to. Relationships won't matter at that point. Your banker may not be there anymore. They're going to call them on you. So remember this. Remember this. That's not to say you should not do commercial loans. It's just to be aware of the risk. Okay. The other option here is what you might consider portfolio or soft money. These lenders are typically still kind of institutional type organizations, but they focus on their products specifically to investors. They're trying to offer you, they'll package a bunch of deals together. They're usually nationwide, or they do, maybe not every state, but they'll do a big swath of states. And their rates aren't quite as competitive as this. So this has the most competitive interest rates, And like right now, as this has been recorded, you might get a 5 to 5.5. Here you might get a 6. And then here you might get somewhere between 6 and 8%. In today's market, as of early 2019, those are kind of the ranges that you might get on that. That's what the market would pull. And portfolio lenders, when the numbers make sense for you, can be kind of nice, because then you can package all your deals up together into one loan, and you're just making one loan. I have never actually done these, but I've considered it, and I've shopped them around quite a bit. There are a variety of options out there, and they're kind of always changing. So it's just a good search on the internet for portfolio lenders will help you find one of those. Okay, and then kind of the last one here is hard money. And hard money is often used when you're flipping houses. You also can do it for doing the buy and refi or BRRRR strategy. You buy it with hard money and then refi it again 6 to 12 months later. Typically the money here is pretty expensive, somewhere between 10 to maybe even as high as 18%. That's the range of that. And typically they're short-term loans in the range of 6 months or so. That's hard money. And these aren't always institutions. This could be a individual lender, or it could be a small company that does hard money lenders or hard money loans. These typically are other investors who have been in the business for a while, and they've had some money, and they either started a small little business or they do a little bit of lending on the side, and they use hard money terms. Typically they're only going to lend somewhere between 65% loan to value. They're fairly strict on how much they're going to lend on, whereas with some of these other ones you can go as high as 85% in some cases, trying to borrow money here. And each one of these they kind of set their own terms. You don't really get to negotiate too much. Whatever you get from a traditional bank is what you're going to get. You can't really change it. Same with commercial. To some degree, your portfolio, you might be able to negotiate a bit and shop them. And hard money, you can negotiate and you can shop around, and you can get a different range. Oftentimes, they'll also charge points, somewhere between 2 and 5 points, which is just a percent. So if it were a $100,000 loan, it was 2 points, it'd be $2,000 fee to originate the loan. And so that's the institutional side. That's where most people stop. If you can't get money this way, then people just think they can't get money. There's also another side of things called creative, and this is where I like to play the most. And so one of them is owner financing, my favorite way to buy. And I'll have a video up here on more details. If you want to really understand owner financing, you really, really want to understand the power of that. Basically, it's also called seller financing or seller carry. A lot of different names for it. What it fundamentally means is that the seller is selling to you, and then you're making them payments for the purchase price. So they're basically using their equity as a source of financing to you, and you're technically not borrowing money from them. You're buying from them and making payments over time with interest most times. Favorite way to buy. So I always try and make an owner financing offer if at all possible, because I don't have to deal with any institutional bank. I don't have to deal with any kind of third party. I'm only doing business with the other side, the seller or the owner that is now selling to me. And I love doing business that way. But that doesn't always work. So the next layer of options on the creative side is subject to the existing mortgage. And so really what you're doing there is you're buying somebody else's financing. Somebody else has gone and got a traditional bank loan, and for whatever reason they need to sell their property, and they're in a bit of a bind, and they really need to kind of unravel the problem and kind of move on with life. And you can help them do that by making payments. And I have a link up here on on what subject to the existing mortgage is, and a couple different ways to do it. I'll have a whole series on that, because most people don't really have their head around that. And can be a very useful tool, but make sure and understand the caveats to that, because it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's often touted as such. Use appropriately. Okay, and next, when I can't do one of those two, then I'll go to private money. And private money is simply money that is lent based on a personal relationship. This is typically considered friends, family, and associates. People that you know, friends, family, associates. This is not something that you go on the internet and put an ad out because of there's some very specific security laws that you want to be careful of here. You only want to do business with private money with people that you actually know, and that you are just be very careful to not promise something that you can't actually follow up on. So, and never use the word safe and never use the word guaranteed when you're talking to people about borrowing money from them. You can say that it is secured by the underlying collateral. And you can look more on a video up here about how to do promissory notes and mortgages, and that's how you would set up a transaction like that. Okay, also a very favorite way of mine to do business is I like doing business with other people's money, and especially when they're using their IRA or solo 401k, basically tax advantaged accounts. So this is different types. They can just use cash. If they have cash, that's fine too. But I like to use it in their IRA or solo 401k because a lot of people have lazy money that's sitting around in their IRA or solo 401k, and they don't really know how to deploy it, and they can basically do what they call self-directed IRAs. Self-directed. And self-directed IRAs allow you to invest in alternative investments other than basically securities that are on the, like the Charles Schwab or Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, or those kind of companies. You can have a kind of what they call a custodian that is a self-directed custodian that allows you to buy investment property. So I love using that source of income or that source of money in order to buy properties because it's a partner. And so if these don't work, maybe you can do a joint venture. A joint venture is another way of using private money or creative financing, which oftentimes it is still private money, but that joint venture now basically they own the property with you. They're not just lending you money, they're actually sharing in some of the equity and the cash flows with you right here, joint ventures. And lastly, this is not really financing, but it's another way to control properties, and you can use a lease. A lease with how to control the property. You're not actually borrowing money at all. You're just controlling the property and then potentially subletting it to somebody else, and you get to control the property, have the responsibilities of ownership or management, but not the responsibility of ownership. So it's a nice way to get involved in this business without actually putting a lot of risk out there. What you do is you find a landlord who needs or has a problem, and they would just rather outsource it to you, and you create some sort of exit strategy for them, or maybe you do an Airbnb. You basically are monetizing the underlying property in a way that takes some energy, but you're willing to do so because you don't have money, and the owner, the landlord, whoever it is, they're tired. They don't want to fuss with it anymore. It's a good way to get started in business. So here are some of the various ways to use other people's money in order to get started in real estate and start earning income so that you can one day transition out of your day job. I'm curious, comment down below, what kind of these transactions are you doing? What kind of funding are you using? Where do you have trouble? I want to help figure out which videos to do in order to help solve your problems. My name is Paul David Thompson. I have a podcast called Ready Investor One, where I talk about the mindset and mechanics of real estate investing so that you can create passive residual income and build significant wealth. You can do this. It just takes one deal at a time. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, make sure and give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you can watch future videos, and make sure and hit the notification button so you can get notified when new videos are posted. And right now I have additional videos for you right here.